Last year, GKD introduced the Pixel, a new retro handheld that was built completely out of anodized aluminum alloy, all the way down to the buttons. The fit and finish of the device was near perfect in both feel and build quality. The Pixel continued to grow in popularity over the course of the year, and just when it hit the peak of being one of the most sought after of devices, GKD stopped production, making the handheld difficult to find, and reseller prices began to increase, immediately turning it into a collector's handheld of sorts. We didn't know it at the time, but GKD had something up their sleeve. A few months after production stopped on the Pixel, GKD now has introduced us to the Pixel 2. An upgraded version of the popular Pixel with improvements in almost every way that gamers asked for. Though near perfect isn't perfect, I didn't think it was possible to improve on GKD's design, but here I've been proven wrong. What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. Today we're going to explore the changes made to the GKD Pixel 2 and find out if this might be the EDC handheld your pocket has been waiting for. Let's take a look. This will likely be one of the fastest unboxings that we ever do on this channel, except for maybe the last GKD Pixel, because these things unbox pretty quickly. Here we do have a box that it comes in that does say GKD Pixel, but there actually is another surprise inside, and these do come in literally the world's coolest boxes as far as retro handhelds go. They just feel retro to me. This did come with a screen cover, which is really important on these, and we'll talk about it a little bit as the review goes on, but these are important to have, and this is a hard screen cover. It's nice. It even has the bezel on it, so that's pretty sweet. We'll set that aside, and then we do have the box with the GKD Pixel in it. Look at how cool this box is. It's so cool. It's got their Game Kitty name up there. It looks very much like the original. I was going to grab it out, but it's in my box full of boxes, and it's so deep. I didn't want to dig through it. This one did come from our friends over at Mech DIY. We'll talk more about that as the video goes on. As we open her up, this box is about the size of a pack of cards, I guess you could say. And inside there's only two things, the GKD Pixel and an origami accordion. And the coolest thing you're going to find in this whole thing, if you read through it all, is that the stock operating system for GKD on the Pixel is Treatment Childhood. It's called the Treatment Childhood system. Why? I don't know. And if you can read other languages, we have one of those here on the back as well. Looks like Mandarin, and we'll put this into the box over there. And now we're to the GKD Pixel. I opted for the green, and I got green. Pretty awesome. I usually don't get the colors I ask for, so I'm pretty excited about this. I wanted it to kind of match up with my blue, and I think the two colors are going to look fantastic together here when I don't have one of them in my bag. I have all kinds of accessories for the first one. I'm sure I'll probably do something similar for the second one. And now I'm not going to be worried about changing out the buttons on here, because these buttons are not metal, they're plastic, unlike the ones over here, which happen to be metal buttons. So I never switched them out. Now that we got all that out of the way, I'm going to put this stuff to the side. Coming in 7 grams heavier than the original model, there are visually some noticeable differences here on the GKD Pixel 2 prior to booting this up. For one, it's about 1 millimeter taller, which is kind of hard to tell. I don't even know how to show you that. It is significantly wider as well. That one's a little bit easier to show you. When you hold it, it's very difficult to notice. Sometimes actually the Pixel 2 seems lighter because it's not as dense, because there's not so much crammed into one spot, but there is actually a bigger battery in this, which does add some weight at 1800 milliamps versus the 1300 milliamps that are in the Pixel 1. But even with a wider body, this still has a 2.4 inch screen with a higher resolution this time of 640 by 480. There's still a single micro SD card slot with a 64 gig Game Kitty micro SD card inside. It's branded to their own brand, and it's pre-installed with games. This can obviously be changed out for a much larger memory card if you'd like to. There's really nothing holding you back from doing that, but I do like that they actually have their own branded card when you get these handhelds. On the bottom of the Pixel 2, you are going to find a 3.5 millimeter audio jack and a single Type-C charging or OTG port located on the bottom here as well, right next to a speaker. Now, normally we do start this at the top, so we will reverse ourselves a little bit here. We do have inline shoulders and triggers, and on the back here, we just have a nice area and a spot for a lanyard, so you know it's a micro handheld because they're giving you the option to have this hanging out all willy-nilly on a lanyard. Back to this OTG port here on the bottom, you can use a Wi-Fi dongle with it for scraping box art, doing net play games with your friends, or knocking out some retro achievements. And I found one dongle that works really well with this. I'll put a link down on my thingamabob to an Amazon link. It's not very expensive in case you want to pick one up. The dongle works on pretty much every handheld that does OTG, so if you have other handhelds, you'll be able to use it on those as well. Here on the left-hand side, we do have volume up and down right above that memory card slot we looked at before. And on the right hand side over here, we do have a power and a menu button. And then these here are to tell you your battery level. And as your battery goes down, they progressively have less dash marks here on the side. Really cool way to check your battery when you're in a game. If you're familiar with these Linux handhelds, most of the time you can't see your battery power while actually in gameplay. Here you can see it right on the side, and it will turn red when it's time to charge it. As well as they do have an alarm you can set, so when it hits the last 10%, it lets you know that an alarm will go off. Here on the front, we do have that 2.4 inch screen that we talked about. This one here is branded specifically for the Pixel 2, where the original was branded for the Pixel. We do have plastic buttons this time instead of metal. and that's okay. They've got great travel still. The only ones that are loud with switches are going to be the start and select button. The rest of them are quiet and sound really good and feel really good. You do have a central pivot on this D-pad, maybe. We'll try that again. I can show you that right here. There's that central pivot, and it does have good rebound. You can play fighting games on here, though it is still a smaller D-pad, so it's not necessarily the most fun thing that's out there. And then when it comes to our face buttons, these are also smaller because it's a micro handheld, but these also do have a good amount of bounce coming right back at you. So no problems here. I got no problems with the D-pad or the buttons on here. Really good for platformers, a little hit or miss when it comes to fighting games. Moving on to the operating system that comes on here, one of the options here is going to be Rocknix. Now Rocknix is a fork of Jealous. Jealous isn't really made so much anymore, so Rocknix took that over for all the Rockchip devices. This is a tried and true Linux operating system. Nothing to be worried about here. It works really well. And with their long track record of making a good OS, I have seen no issues here and don't expect to see any moving forward. Other than maybe one, and I haven't figured it out yet, but I know I just need to reprogram the menu button, but for some reason, when you hit the menu button in anything other than PSP, which is running in a standalone emulator, but if you're in anything that's running in RetroArt, it actually just freezes up the device. It doesn't actually go into a menu, and you need to reboot it to get back in. Makes it a little difficult to use your save states when you run into a situation like that, so it's been a little frustrating. I know I just need to reprogram the button. I don't know why I haven't done it yet, but other than that, Rocknix has been great for me, and this isn't specifically a Rocknix problem. They didn't program it inside the Tiny Child operating system either. Before we continue on, let's go through these specs real quick. Again, this is running Linux. It does have a 2.4-inch 640 by 480 IPS display with a 4:3 aspect ratio. It is running the RK3326S quad-core at 1.5 Hz. I don't know what the S means. I'm guessing speed. I don't know how that makes it any different than the other 3326s. I haven't really been able to find much about that. It's unconfirmed, but I believe there is 1 GB of RAM. I have not been able to find for sure if that is the amount, but it does say that in some of the settings on here, so I'm going to run with 1 gig of RAM. The 64 gigs included are from the SD card. You can get Wi-Fi by Dongle, 1800 milliamp battery, and its charger is a 5 amp 2 volt fast charging. The nice thing about GKD devices, if you're looking for something to travel with, they pretty much charge on any charger. I've never had an issue charging these, and I've tried them on all kinds of chargers. I think it's something you can kind of get away with, so if you're going to have this as like an EDC travel device, there is some advantage there of being able to bring it with you and be able to charge on the go with the stuff you already have. Nothing special for this one, just grab it and go, and maybe that's why it doesn't even come with a USB-C cable inside of the box. It's a very bare bone box for sure. Now this handheld I have right here was provided to us by our friends over at Mech DIY for the purpose of review. They get no input on what goes in the video and won't see it till you do, and I totally respect that. So I've had a really good relationship with Mech DIY, and I'll leave a link down in my thingamabob where you can pick up one of these for yourself, and then later in the video I'll have a discount code for you that you can use to save some real money on the Pixel 2. In a lot of instances you're going to find it the same or cheaper than places like AliExpress, and there'll be a team there behind the product that you can reach out to if you have any problems. There's a big benefit for using some of these third-party resellers, but that code will be towards the end of the video. Mech DIY does carry the Pixel in multiple colors, including gunmetal gray, purple, green, red. There's no blue this time around, which was kind of a bummer, I mean, I like green. I kind of wanted green last time, so it worked out pretty good. But thank you, Mech DIY, for supporting the channel, and thank you, viewers, for supporting me by supporting them. In holding the Pixel 2, it's immediately evident that the handheld being wider makes it more comfortable to hold in your hands. There is a difference between how cramped this one can be. The original can be kind of cramped sometimes, where this actually lets your hands kind of come out a little bit, and I don't feel like I'm playing off my fingertips so much. So I would say it doesn't completely eliminate the awkwardness of playing on a tiny handheld, but it definitely is an improvement from the original. The primary customer for the Pixel 2 is going to be someone who wants a handheld that disappears in your pocket, but it's there if you've got limited time to play. The battery being only 1800 milliamps limits you to like 3 to 4 hours of gameplay depending on what you're playing on a single charge, though it charges really quick. It's kind of amazing how fast this can charge, and part of that is not being limited to the chargers that most of these retro handhelds are limited to. And with the side here, it is really easy to check your battery level. As you can see, I'm probably at about 60 to 75%, and that'll tell me here on this main screen I'm at 68%. Look at that. So I have a pretty good idea of where it's at, and I do have the alarm turned on, so if I am playing and it gets down to that 10%, it will tell me. Now the face buttons on here have a decent amount of bounce like I showed you before, and they do have rubber membranes underneath there with a very quick recovery. The D-pad's similar, and it does have a decent central pivot like I also mentioned before, but I found that for some reason in some fighting games I can play really well with this D-pad and in others I can't, and maybe it's just because I'm really not good at any of them, so I just don't get the lucky hits sometimes. But the edges are a little bit sharp, or I don't know if sharp's the right word. They're not rounded off, so I have a hard time kind of getting around the corner here. If I'm going to do a Hadouken, I have a hard time making that corner. Now you do have a fair amount of preloaded systems here on this 64 gig card, which does mean that some of these systems are only going to have a couple of games. Here's Dreamcast, 3 games. You're just going to run into this. And then sometimes there's alphabetically tons of games in different folders. So here is our Sega Saturn, which does have 4 games in it. I wouldn't pick this up to play Sega Saturn, but that's just me. It is a 3326, not the most powerful SoC on the market today. But one of the first things that I did when I realized that there was Portmaster on here is I loaded up UFO 50, which is one of the greatest games that you can play on Portmaster. I know it's a newer title. It just came out on Steam within the last, I don't know, 6 months or so, but it is great with Portmaster. You get 50 built-in modern retro games if you've never played it. And no, I'm not shilling for them. I'm just letting you know about it because I want you guys to have the info because it is pretty cool if you're into retro games. They are games that were recently made by developers, all packaged into one bundle, and it's a 50-in-1 kind of package. But they're all games you've never played before unless you've played UFO 50 before. One of the other things that's great about this having Rocknix on it is that you actually get Pico 8 as well, which is another one of my favorite systems, which actually isn't a system. It's a fantasy console. And no, not that kind of fantasy. It is a fantasy console, as in they never actually made a console, but people make games for it. And you do have Pico 8 on here too. Now, as you see, there's no box art on anything. And unfortunately, the scraper in this Rocknix build only does arcade games. The only scraper database you can do is Arcade DB, and there's not much. It didn't even hit very many of them. So I actually pulled the card out and did the scraping on my computer, which is fine. It's pretty quick. But then I realized that if I go here and go to quit, I can go over to the IUX or their actual firmware, and all the box art is listed over on their operating system. So if I were to go over here and say I want to go to, I don't know, PlayStation, I can actually see all the box art for all the games. It's mind-boggling. I don't know what is going on here. It has the box art for all the systems in here, and it doesn't translate over to Rocknix for some reason, and I'm not sure why they can't share a folder, but the box art's already here. It's just not here. It's not available for you to play, at least in the Rocknix side, you won't see it. So you actually have to go through and scrape it, which I did once, because then I did a firmware update, and so I just put my games back on, and I haven't had a chance to scrape my box art again. But it is there, it's available, you can do it. You just have to pull your card out and tell it where to drop the art by using the desktop app for Screen Scraper. Not a big deal. Now, there are applications like Moonlight pre-installed on here that would allow a person to do game streaming over Wi-Fi if you have a dongle in here, if that interests you at all. I don't use it. I have plenty of 7-inch devices, including the Logitech G Cloud and the Odin 2 Portal for game streaming on a handheld that I can easily see the screen on. This just seems a little small to be playing some games over Xbox Game Pass or something like that. But if that's something you're into, the option is there and it's already pre-built. And if you want to get to it, you just hit the start button and you go into your menu here, and right underneath network settings is Moonlight game streaming. Now, you also do have some other options here in your network settings, including enabling SSH, Samba. You can do a HTTP server through this and some other things, some stuff with USB and what have not. You can also mount a cloud drive to save your states. I am a big proponent of SyncThing, even though now it's usually a fork, at least on the Android side. You can actually install SyncThing on any of these handhelds. It's pretty simple. I did an instruction video on the RG353V a while back, maybe even on the Mew Mini. It's the exact same process. You can go take a look at that video. Now, this screen cover here has to be one of the greatest things that's an improvement over the original GKD Pixel, and that's because you couldn't really find the right screen cover for this, and they were soft ones when you did, but the inclusion of this is very helpful. It seems like a simple thing, but the original Pixel would get pocket lint stuck in all these little corners around on the inside here in this like little dugout that's kind of built in here, because there is a pretty thick wall right there, and most of the screen covers you got for it would get stuck underneath this metal bezel around the outside. This one comes with a hard screen cover, eliminating that issue completely, where you can actually just pop it directly into it, and the bezels are actually included on here as well. So no more pocket lint on this one once I get the screen cover on, but I've been carrying it around for a while now without it, just so I could show you what it looked like in this review, and I still haven't pulled it out of the bag yet, so I guess maybe we should do that real quick. Getting all excited about it, having pulled it out of the bag. So this is what it looks like, and you just pull this and sticker right on there, and boom. The interesting thing though is once you put the screen cover on, you are going to lose where it says GKD Pixel 2. Just seems weird to me that that would come off of there, but to me it's not all that important because I know what I have, and it says it on the back in case somebody else needs to know and doesn't believe me. But also, maybe this will give me an opportunity to find some knockoff stickers for the cool limited edition yellow Pixel 2s. Put it here on my green one. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Then it can say Game Kitty on it. Now, the GKD Pixel 2 isn't going to be for everybody, but if you're looking for a semi-collectible handheld with great build quality, pocketability, and decent performance, it's definitely one worth considering. As I stated earlier, it's easily one of the best devices to forget in your pocket until you need it for those shorter play sessions while you're waiting in line or otherwise just limited on time. But if you do decide to order a GKD Pixel, I'd recommend grabbing one from Mech DIY with my link down in the thingamabob and use code RETROSPEC16. I just threw it up here on the screen against RETROSPEC16 to save yourself some real money. Thank you again, Mech DIY, for supplying the GKD Pixel 2 for the video for review and the discount you offer to my viewers. The Pixel 2 is a fun little handheld that's a lot of fun to play with. I think it's a good balance between size and capabilities, along with like a decent amount of emulation power thanks to the RK3326. I know they're getting used a lot this year, but look at how small this is in comparison to some of the handhelds that they're putting it in right now. If you have any questions about what we discussed here, please leave them down in the comment section, as I do actively enjoy answering your questions. I think it'd be hard not to enjoy a handheld with this build quality, but I do also understand that micro handhelds aren't for everyone. If you find the Pixel 2 to be too small and are in the market for a smaller handheld, I'll leave you some links to the Miyoo Mini, Miyoo Mini Plus, and maybe the TrimUI Brick. Here's another all-metal handheld, which I really like, and this is a Miyoo Mini I recently did for a video. You can take a look at this one. Now, it weighs a lot more than the Pixel 2, but it is an option, and look at that. They go so well together. Maybe I need to make this one Zelda themed too. I hadn't even thought of that. We might have to do that. But this is another good option. And the TrimUI Brick is partly metal as well. If you're looking for that build quality, TrimUI Brick has a really good resolution screen, and it does have a metal backplate on it. And you do have a lot of cool options with buttons and things like that. I'll leave a link to that down in my thingamabob as well. These are all really good handhelds for everyday carries, and it really depends on how big of a screen you want and how much playtime and what you're going to be playing. I've done videos on all these handhelds, and you can find them on my page. And even though these ones are bigger, they're definitely still pocketable. But that's all I got for you today. If you would please comment, rate, subscribe, along with sharing this video, because it greatly helps the channel. Also, if you're looking for something to do, check out one of these other videos that Google has chosen for you. They usually do a pretty good job because Google knows everything about you. But that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye!